Hard-left spokesmen almost never break character as they purvey their nonsense. They give the impression to all the world that they really believe their own half-truths, lies, and distortions. However, investigative journalist Dexter Van Zyl reported recently in Algemeiner something very interesting about Muslim activist Cory Saylor, who is the managing director of the Security and Rights at Rethink Media and former director of the Department to Monitor and Combat Islamophobia at the Hamas-linked Council on American Islamic Relations, or CAIR. Saylor recently revealed, probably inadvertently, that he knows the truth beyond the Islamophobia victimhood propaganda that CAIR and its allied organizations tirelessly pump out. Van Zyl said this, speaking at a counter-Islamophobia conference at the University of Minnesota, Saylor admitted that anti-Muslim sentiment is driven in part by jihadists who kill in the name of Allah. Saylor conceded during a conference session entitled How Islamophobia Became Mainstream that violent extremist groups that claim that Islam gives sanction to their actions contribute to Islamophobia. Saylor punctuated his statement with an emphatic, "There's no doubt about it." According to Van Zyl, he added that to not acknowledge the impact that groups like ISIS have had on attitudes about Islam and its adherents would be to not have a complete conversation. Now, this is highly unusual. It could even have been a slip on Saylor's part. I wouldn't be surprised if his former bosses at CAIR, Jihad Watch and Ibrahim Hooper, call him in for a reprimand. The usual line that CAIR takes, along with its leftist and Islamic supremacist allies, is that Islamophobia is entirely a product of a well-heeled and sinister cabal of Islamophobes, and that they have somehow succeeded in spreading fear and hatred of Muslims among a large segment of American population solely by means of malicious and mendacious propaganda. The CAIR line, which of course is eagerly parroted by the leftist establishment media, is that a small, lavishly funded, unfortunately not, an interconnected group of Islamophobes, including most notably Pamela Geller, Frank Gaffney, John Guandolo, David Horowitz, and me, are, out of our insatiable desire for profit, making Americans hate the prophet. We are, the story goes, a clique of racists and bigots who have decided to make people hate Muslims because we supposedly make a handsome profit from that hate. This is all, of course, total nonsense, and a former high-ranking CAIR official has now admitted that he knows it's nonsense. The obvious reality is that no one would have a negative view of Islam or Muslims at all were it not for jihad massacres, boasts of imminent takeover, mass rapes by Muslim gangs, and so on and so on. CAIR's extravagant claims about our clout are oddly out of sync with the contempt that it heaps upon us, but it gives us so much credit because the alternative is too terrifying for its officials to contemplate, to admit that Islam's negative image may be the fault of Muslims, not non-Muslims. The last thing that CAIR and its leftist allies want to do is acknowledge that if any Americans really have negative impressions of Islam, it is because of the actions of Muslims who commit acts of terror while screaming Allahu Akbar and pointing to the Quran and Muhammad to justify what they have done. If Americans dislike Islam, it's because of Osama bin Laden, Abu Bakr al-Baghdadi, Anwar al-Awlaki, Nidal Malik Hassan, Dzhokhar and Tamerlan Tsarnaev, and the rest. Not because of Geller, Gaffney, Horowitz, and me. But to admit this would focus unwelcome attention on the fact that these men and other jihad terrorists were devout Muslims, acting upon the texts and teachings of Islam. Yet now that is just what Saylor has done. In doing this, he has endangered the entire Islamophobia narrative. He has heralded the day when the entire Islamophobia victimhood industry, with all its conferences, think tanks, and endowed chairs, will collapse under the weight of reality. That day is coming, and Saylor knows it's coming. Maybe even Jihad Watch and Ibrahim Hooper know it's coming too, which is why they're so insistent on pushing their narrative at every opportunity now, before it's too late. Thus, despite Saylor's admission, the Islamophobia victimhood industry will continue to defame and vilify those who call attention to the reality of jihad terror. It's telling that CAIR and its allies devote so much of their time and energy to demonizing and stigmatizing those who call attention to jihad activity and its justifications within Islamic teaching. Do CAIR and the left really want to intimidate people into not opposing the advancing jihad so that it can advance unimpeded? It sure seems that way. I'm Robert Spencer, a Shulman Fellow for the David Horowitz Freedom Center and Director of Jihad Watch. This video has been brought to you by the Center for Security Policy.